Hello everyone, and thank you all for participating in this stream, for your attention, and many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on. Today is 14th of April. Now it's 6 o'clock in the evening. I'm late for a minute. Sorry for that. And well, this is a community chat, traditional community chat. And before I start, dear friends, I have an announcement to make. I received some suggestions from members of our community, and I was also thinking about it, to move one live stream on Rumble channel. And because now I have two live streams on Mondays and Fridays, whenever I have time and there are no technical issues. And I will leave Monday updates on YouTube and Friday updates. Probably I will move on Rumble, and hopefully it will help to generate more interest towards my Rumble channel. After all, it's monetized, and if sometime in the future there will be similar views on Rumble as it is on YouTube, maybe Rumble will become a somewhat serious source of support for this project. So let's see how it goes. This is when it comes to announcement, and now let's start the stream. Let's start the stream, and once again, thank you all for participating. And dear friends, if it's okay with you, I will share some news in the beginning of the stream, and then let's have exchange of opinions. I guess latest reports in Russian media probably is interesting, and so let's start with this report from RIA Novosti that Russian Defense Ministry commented today on a missile strike that happened on Sunday on the point of concentration of Kiev regime's forces in the Sumy city. And let's go through this news for some details. On Sunday, Russian military launched an Iskander strike on the location of their meeting of the command staff of the Ukrainian Operational Tactical Group Seversk in Sumy. Defense Ministry of the Russian Federation reported. And we have a quote here from statement. Yesterday, in the city of Sumy, the armed forces of the Russian Federation, in their conditions of active radio electronic warfare by the Ukrainian armed forces, from the Ukrainian armed forces, launched and also active work of air defense systems, launched a strike with the two Iskander-M operational tactical missiles at the location where a meeting of the command staff of the Seversk Operational Tactical Group was being held. It is noted that the result of the strike is that more than 60 militants of the Kiev regime were killed. This is Defense Ministry, by the way. As the Ministry of Defense noted, Kiev continues to use its population as a human shield, holding events with the participation of military personnel in the center of their densely populated areas, in this particular case city. In response to attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces on civilian objects, Russian troops regularly strike at the locations of the personnel, equipment, and their mercenaries, as well as the Ukrainian infrastructure, defense, industry facilities, military command, and communication. At the same time, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has repeatedly emphasized that the military does not strike residential buildings and social institutions. So Russian Defense Ministry acknowledges that there was two Iskander-M missiles that were launched towards point of concentration of Kiev regime's forces, and we all know that there were Kiev regime's militants there, because after all, Ukrainian MPs and some other officials themselves made statements about it, and they demanded certain high-ranking officials to be prosecuted for holding meetings of the militaries in densely populated areas. So there can be no questions about it. I know in the Western propaganda, by the way, now are pushing this narrative that Russian armed forces deliberately strike civilians, but we all understand that this is all nonsense. Western so-called media and their public figures were never about truth, right? And Foreign Minister of Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, also commented on this matter. Let's go through this commentary. According to Lavrov, there was a meeting in Sumy of Ukrainian military leaders with their Western colleagues. So Lavrov added actually some more nuance to the statement of Defense Ministry, and he highlighted that there was also Western instructors, let's say, presented at that meeting. So this is interview, by the way, from Kommersant. I'm not going to go through this interview as a whole, but lead itself says main part that it was a militaries, and also, by the way, despite the censorship, heavy censorship of Kyiv regime, news is appearing on internet from Kyiv-controlled territory about killed military personnel of the Kyiv regime as a result of this strike. And on my Telegram and Twitter X page, I posted at least several news about it. So according to reports from a number of sources, during yesterday's missile strike on the point of concentration of militants of the Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky in the city of Sumy, Deputy Brigade Commander of the 26th Artillery Brigade, Colonel Yuri Yula, was killed. That's the person, by the way. Deputy of their head of brigade, high-ranking official of the Kyiv regime's so-called military, right? And meanwhile, terrorist regime of Zelensky and its Western masters continue to their false propaganda about absence of military personnel at the point of missile strike, which is, we all know, is a false propaganda. And not just that, but also another report that, despite their censorship of the Western, Zelensky's regime, basically more and more reports are appearing. This is my comments, by the way, that I made on Telegram. In this particular case, this person, by the way, this person is from Talavaysko village, I guess, because the local territorial community reported of his death in a Sumy, by the way, as a result of strike yesterday, on 13th of April, and you can read 13 here, isn't it? I mean, hopefully you can see on the screen. So I did not search for the additional information. This is just what I see while working on internet to prepare next program, right? I saw these cases and I published information about it. And, of course, it is sad, by the way. It is sad that there was casualties among civilians. Tragedy, obviously, but we all know that Russian armed forces do not strike deliberately civilians, but this is a high-intensity war, high-intensity conflict that Western ruling class is waging against Russia, proxy war, where Ukraine is a proxy. That's what Kyiv regime choose to be. And unfortunately, I mean, military equipment might fail, missiles might fail, and also we should keep in mind that Kyiv regime is operating with their air defense systems quite often in city areas. Kyiv regime is also actively using radio electronic warfare systems. Usually all this stuff is Western made, and it is the possibility that they might influence one of the missiles. Maybe not, but in any case, Russian Defense Ministry is acknowledging strike on point of concentration of Kyiv regime's forces, and obviously, humanly speaking, it is sad that this meeting of the Kyiv regime's personnel was held in a residential, densely populated area, and there was collateral damage. Many civilians were killed and wounded. Tragedy, by the way, but unfortunately, it does happen. This kind of stuff does happen during the high-intensity conflict. If Russia wanted to strike civilians deliberately, then you'll see what has happened in the Gaza Strip, isn't it? I mean, do I have to explain anything else? I don't think so, right? All the cities, literally all the cities on Kiev control territory, if Russia wanted to, would be turned into what we have seen in the Gaza Strip, but it didn't, right? Because Russia strongly acting on based of laws of war, right? And there are targets militaries are only, but unfortunately, they can be some collateral damage. And what is also sadder? Now Western propaganda and Western so-called public figures are trying to generate yet another wave of Russia hate, anti-Russian sentiment, Russophobia, right? They are using any reason for that. And meanwhile, did you ever hear anything about Russian civilians that were killed as a result of strikes by Kyiv regime, usually with the active support of NATO? Did you ever hear in the Western propaganda outlets, in the Western so-called media, anything about it? For example, today, this is today's report, by the way, 2 civilians were killed and 1 was injured after Ukrainian shelling in Kursk region. So 2 people died and another was injured after Ukrainian shelling of the city of Zabuzhevka in the Belovsky district of the Kursk region. I'm 100% convinced none of the Western media outlets will report about it. None of them. Among all those that are now trying to create this another wave of Russia hate due to this tragic incident in Sumy where civilians died and were wounded. But yet again, responsibility solely lays on the Kyiv regime, I believe, because they're organizing gathering of their militaries in densely populated area, and they are actually using humans as a human shields, their fellow citizens, right? Because I'm quite sure there are plenty of areas on Kyiv control territory outside of cities where they can organize gathering, but no, they choose central part of the Sumy. Why? Anyways, let's continue, dear friends. And Trump commented on Ukrainian crisis. Once again, there is attempt from Western so-called media, globalist media, I will say, or globalist controlled media, to force Trump to say some aggressive stuff towards Russia, nasty stuff towards Russia. They know Trump is, can be quite emotional, and he may go off time to time, and it might harm actually attempts to more or less normalize relationships between Russia and US. And he was asked to comment on Ukrainian crisis, and let's go through what he has to say. The war between Russia and Ukraine is Biden's war, not mine. I just get here, and for 4 years during my term had no problem in preventing it from happening. President Putin and everyone else respected your president. He is addressing US citizens, of course. I had nothing to do with this war, but I'm working diligently to get the death and the destruction to stop. If the 2020 presidential election was not rigged, and it was in so many ways, that horrible war would never have happened. President Zelensky and the crooked Joe Biden did an absolutely horrible job in allowing this travesty to begin. There were so many ways to preventing it from even starting, but that is a past. Now we have to get it to stop, and fast. So sad. Trump is saying, basically he's blaming Biden and Zelensky, understandably so, but let's be real here. Western ruling class, Biden and Zelensky, they were puppets, and they still are puppets of the Western ruling class, right? globalists and the globalists. Western ruling class is not a united bunch of people, is not it? There are some different groups there. One part is globalists that is in control of Europe mainly now, and another part is in control of US now. Although during the Biden's administration, globalists were controlling both sides of their Atlantic, right? So yes, technically speaking, Trump, his administration, and the pro-American forces that are behind him did not really participate much to provoke this war. I don't think they are that innocent, but still, I think globalists were main force behind this proxy war. After all, it was during the Obama's presidency, isn't it, when that coup d'etat happened in Kiev, right, in 2014, and Obama was and is a puppet of globalists, of course. He was never about America. But anyways, this is the comment from the Trump. It is good that U.S. leadership is making some restrained comments, because obviously they understand that this is high intensity conflict, and unfortunately completely avoid collateral damage is just impossible. That's how it is. Also, when it comes to long-range strikes, we also have this report that Russian armed forces today, by the way, hit a Ukrainian communications regiment in the Nikolaev region. So long-range strikes continue, by the way. There were long-range strikes in Sumy also today. Russia not going to stop demilitarizing Kiev regime and denazifying those criminal elements that are in charge there. So there was long-range strikes today also, and these long-range strikes continue, of course, until all goals of their special military operation are reached. Vzгляд newspaper is also reporting that Zelensky refused to negotiate with Russia. What a surprise. One should keep in mind that Zelensky, while he had some legitimacy before his term ran out, he issued a decree banning any negotiations for Kiev regime's officials with the Russian side. So by his own decree, no one from Kiev regime can negotiate with Russia, right? But Zelensky, we know, I mean, he's actor, and based on which way wind is blowing, he can say, today he can say that he is refusing to negotiate with Russia, tomorrow something completely opposite. So Vladimir Zelensky declared his distrust of Moscow and his refusal to negotiate with Russia, accusing the American administration of declaring pro-Russian narratives. Wow. So Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has rejected the possibility of negotiations with Russia, saying Kiev cannot trust Moscow. Who is talking about trust, man? Unbelievable. I mean, this drug addict, this moron, is and dirty freaking puppet of the globalists is talking about trust. This freaking nobody, man. He said this in an interview with their CBS TV channel. According to him, distrust of Russia is the main reason for the refusal of negotiator. In addition, so-called leader of Ukraine expressed doubts about the neutral position of the United States in the conflict. He believes that under the Donald Trump administration, pro-Russian narratives prevail in the United States, which, in his opinion, is wrong. Yeah, I mean, anything that is adequate, of course, is wrong for globalists and their puppets. And when it comes to reaction of the Trump on his interview with the 60 Minutes, Zelensky gave an interview to 60 Minutes, and Trump was not happy with that program, absolutely not happy, because of the Zelensky's criticism, and also because of the topic of Greenland that was highlighted in that program. And so Trump is going to sue this program and this channel. Let's see what Trump had to say about it. US President Donald Trump believes that CBS News should lose its broadcasting license over fraudulent reporting about the conflict in Ukraine and Greenland in the 60-minute show. And we have quote here, "I am so honored to be suing 60 Minutes, CBS fake news and Paramount over their fraudulent beyond the recognition reporting," Trump wrote on the Truth Social platform. "They are not a news show, but dishonest political operatives simply disguised as news and must be responsible for what they have done and are doing. They should lose their license," he added, expressing hope that the US Federal Communications Commission will impose the maximum fines and punishment. So yes, Trump is not happy with this program, and who knows, by the way, who knows, maybe CBS will lose license. I don't think so, but who knows, maybe. RIA Novosti is reporting that in Germany, by the way, some public figures are saying that Germany's Merz could drag a country into war with Russia due to his crazy reading of the situation and extreme Russophobia. And this is not surprising, really. He's a son of his father, isn't it? And his father, I believe, was a Nazi, right? So, you know, as some say, apple is never dropped far away from their apple tree, right? So the head of the German party, Sarah Wagenknecht Union for Reason and Justice, unfortunately, this party did not get to a parliament. Just a little bit was, they lacked just a little bit of votes, if I remember correctly. So Sarah Wagenknecht stated that the likely future chancellor of the Germany, Friedrich Merz, by allowing the delivery of Taurus cruise missiles to Ukraine, could drag Germany into a war with Russia. And well, this is clearly a possibility, and at least it is good that some people, some public figures, politicians in Germany and number of other Western countries that are controlled strictly by globalists are strong enough or brave enough to make such statements and confront establishment, because risk is real. And as I said in this today's update in the morning, things may escalate so much so that Russian leadership, extremely patient Russian leadership that acting all these years, by the way, with their extreme restraint, even Russian leadership might lose their patience, and there are some strong, very strong actions can be taken, including preemptive strikes. To basically, neutralize or at least minimize threats that number of countries are creating under leadership of some psychopaths, including Germany, by the way. Germany, UK, and France clearly are a threat for the European stability and security, for sure. And these countries, I personally consider these countries as a threat for Russia under the current leadership. If things change sometime in the future, that would be great. But currently, these countries are a threat for their own citizens, first of all, and they're definitely a threat for stability and security in Europe, and threat for Russia too. It's just too obvious. And it is good that some public figures are acknowledging this and warning the public. And by the way, when it comes to Merz, potentially, future Chancellor of Germany, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, and who knows, maybe future Russian President, also commented on his anti-Russian statements. Let's go through this statement here. So, Deputy Head of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, called the likely new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz a Nazi for his idea of attacking the Crimean Bridge, and recalled his father's Hitler past. As his father was a associate, by the way, of the Hitler. He was Nazi, right? Criminal. He expressed this opinion in a social network, and we have quote here: Chancellor candidate Fritz Merz is haunted by memories of his father, who served in Hitler's Wehrmacht. Now Merz proposes to strike at the Crimean Bridge. Think twice, Nazi, the Russian politician wrote, and this is, by the way, strong warnings. No one should take statements from Moscow with lack of respect, because there are warnings, and then actions, right? And as I said, by the way, Medvedev is a high-ranking official now. He was high-ranking official previously. He was a president of Russia, and he might become a Russian president once again. Who knows? And after all, I'm quite sure whenever he's writing something, he may not necessarily express combined opinion with the current Russian President Putin, but I guess at least some groups in Russian political leadership and military leadership are on the same page with Medvedev, and he is clearly, sometimes at least it looks like he is losing patience, by the way. Putin is not. Putin is like a steel, by the way. I don't know. He has some steel nerves, right? But sometimes it does looks like Medvedev had enough already. And as I said, by the way, everything that has a beginning has its end also. And I guess if globalists and their puppets in the government of Western countries continue their provocative actions, Putin also may say one day that enough is enough, and we issued enough warnings. Now let's act on it. And when that happens, well, I'm quite sure it will be big. It will be big. RIA Novosti is reporting that Algeria expels 12 French diplomats. The Algerian authorities have demanded that 12 employees of French embassy leave the country within 2 days, aiming worsening bilateral relations. Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said in an interview with the Figaro newspaper on Monday. So this information comes from France. Earlier, although, both countries did agree to restart cooperation in all areas, but seems like things are not working out. I reminded you, friends, that France is supporting Morocco in its claim on Western Sahara regions, right? And Algeria, let me show you on the map. And Algeria has different opinions. This is Western Sahara, and it is in Morocco's control, under Morocco's control, and Algeria disagree with it. And I believe one of the main reasons why currently there is tensions between Algeria and France is this issue. Although, by the way, if we just take a look at the history, Algeria was occupied by France. People of Algeria was terrorized by France, and there is enough reasons why relationships between the two countries may not be as good as one would like. And it is a possibility. It is the possibility that relationships between the two countries will continue to deteriorate, and at one point we might even see yet another war in North Africa. France, together with its allies, may actually initiate yet another operation, kind like they did in Libya, against Libya. They might organize something similar against Algeria too, and the Algerian government knows that, and they are preparing. They are arming themselves. I believe there was reports, by the way, some time ago in the media, that Algeria might become a first country which will buy Russian Su-57 5th-gen fighter jets. Algeria is spending a lot on military, and they are clearly preparing themselves, because they know what NATO did to Libya might well happen against them, right? Anyways, let's continue. Telegram. I shared on my Telegram also this information, by the way, when it comes to region, that part of the region, big Middle Easter. Algeria is in North Africa, of course, but in bigger Middle Easter, we can, see Algeria also, North Africa also. So next round of US-Iran nuclear talks on Saturday will take on Saturday in Rome, according to Axios. Washington might push, according to reports, Tehran to downblend near weapons-grade uranium. And I don't think this is going to be big issue for Iran. They might actually give their enriched uranium, and I believe Iran already is enriching uranium up to 60%. They might just transfer this uranium to Russia, for example, or to China. They don't have to downblade nothing, they will just continue to enrich uranium on the levels that are necessary for nuclear power plants to run, and that's about it. So I think if this is their main, let's say, demand from US, Iran to get rid of highly enriched uranium close to weapons grade, then I think sides may actually reach agreement, because I believe Iran never wanted to build nuclear weapons or atomic bombs, and still don't want to do so, right? And therefore, technically speaking, I don't think this is a big issue. So hopefully sides will reach agreement, and US will no longer threaten this major regional country in the Middle East with their bombings and that kind of stuff, because it's going to be total devastation for not just the region, but also for the entire world. And also, new news is being reported today that Hamas offers to free 9 hostages through Gaza talks and without ceasefire deal. This was reported by Al-Arabi Al-Jadid media outlet. Group rejected the deal as evasive, as it lacked firm commitments on Israeli withdrawal on a permanent ceasefire. But they are kind of ready to release 9 hostages. And also I see on one of their media outlets just about an hour ago report that Hamas leadership made statement that they are willing to transform into a political party completely. So maybe they are demonstrating their willingness to give up arms. Maybe, who knows? Let's see how the situation develop there. But I don't think Israel leadership will accept any presence in any shape or form, any presence of Hamas in their political life of their Palestine, Gaza Strip, or the West Bank. So therefore, I don't know if this will work. But if Hamas will release 9 hostages, that will be, of course, a step forward towards a potential de-escalation. Positive step, because those hostages suffered. I mean, how long they're and how much more they're gonna suffer, right? They are hostages, and if Hamas can release all of them, they should. Why? What is the point, really? If they think they're gonna influence Israel, they should understand by now that they're not gonna influence Israel by keeping these hostages. And they should never ever organize that October attack on Israel, by the way. That was a horrific crime, and against civilians. I mean, if they did attack only militaries, one may argue that was combatants against combatants, but when they attacked civilians, that was a big no-no, man. And they still keeping hostages? I don't know. At the same time, one should also, I can see also argument that Israel is also keeping hostages, and thousands of them, not tens or hundreds, but thousands of them, usually without any court decision, right? which is also true. And Israel should also release illegally held Palestinians. No doubts about that. World is sick and tired, by the way, of these unending wars, right? And if it's possible to de-escalate, then everybody should do whatever they can to de-escalate. Sklian newspaper is reporting that European companies offer to return Russian gas. That's quite interesting. Against the backdrop of their difficult energy situation in Europe, major companies are considering resuming imports of Russian gas despite the EU's promise to stop purchasing it by 2027. And that's what our energy crisis does, by the way. These companies that were making strong statements some time ago are beginning to undergo some reality check now. And seems like many of them want to have deals with the Gazprom once again, but I don't think Gazprom should do business with them, really. In my personal opinion, Gazprom should only provide gas to countries that are at least not hostile. And currently, there is, I can tell you, 3 countries in Europe that are not hostile. Serbia, of course, Hungary, and Slovakia, and that's it. That's it. None other country from Europe should ever receive anything from Russia, if you ask me, especially energy, by the way. What for? At least until some real changes will take place there, and they will have governments that are not complete crazies and extreme xenophobes and Russophobes and racists, as it is right now, right? But this day was coming. This day was coming, and it was obvious for all of us, isn't it? That European companies will, and businesses and economies in general will one day reconsider their stance on topic of cooperation with Russia, and their process is underway. Although I don't think Brussels will allow them to still do business with Russia, but if you ask me, Gazprom should also deny to cooperate with them, only with companies from Serbia, Hungary, and Slovakia. That's it. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian oil reserves are sufficient for over 65 years at the current output rate. So Russia's oil reserves at the current production level will be sufficient enough for more than 65 years, and the natural gas reserves are projected to last for at least 100 years, according to country's energy strategy until 2050, which was approved today by the government. And well, quite impressive numbers, by the way. I believe Russia's output of oil is over 500 million tons, right? And by 2030, Russian energy sector plans to reach 540 million tons of oil. There is huge volumes of gas also, of course, and coal, by the way. Coal, according to the strategy, Russian coal reserves stand at 272.7 billion tons, ensuring more than 500 years of output. I don't think humanity will still use coal after 500 years, if it will survive these crazy times. But this century, I think oil, gas, and coal will still play a key role in energy generation and otherwise. At least this century, hopefully in 22nd century, and beyond that, some new technologies will be reached by humanity, and we will no longer use this stuff. But it's not gonna happen in next several decades for sure. Kommersant newspaper is reporting that China urges other countries to work together to combat Trump's tariffs. And you might laugh, but US is planning to do something similar to set conditions for countries wishing to avoid tariffs. And according to Washington Post, and I'm quite sure China might demand exactly the same. If you want to do business with us, then don't do business with China or minimize business with China. Both countries continue this tit for tat fight, which is bad for this world, by the way, for both countries and for this world. Of course, these two major economies should cooperate for sure. And one of the results, from many results of this trade war, tariff war, is that US is losing bigger time. And for example, the euro has risen against the dollar to its highest level in last 3 years, reaching $1.20 for 1 euro, according to Bloomberg. And I commented on this news that it seems like dollar is losing credibility as the world's reserve currency faster than US president can update his social media posts. And this is true, by the way. Last quite some time now, several weeks at least, dollar is consistently losing its position to other major currencies. And this should be concerning for I don't know, US Treasury, US Finance Ministry, US government. They should pay a little more attention to it. And I will end this part of the live stream, dear friends, with this positive news that Russian national hockey team may play against the US team in St. Petersburg and Washington. This was announced by Sports Minister Mikhail Degtyaryov. Representatives of the countries are already holding non-public negotiations and organizing at least two games between teams of the country. And this is great, by the way. I mean, if sides will manage to organize games, sports fans and of course hockey fans will definitely tune in and enjoy their game. It's gonna be great. So let's end this part of news update on this positive news. And now, wow, sorry dear friends, it's 44 minutes already. I did not expect that this news part will last so long. What is your opinion, dear friends? Should I continue this way, or maybe a news update is not necessary during the live streams? Because after all, this is a community chat first of all, right? I have a lot of updates every single day. I have updates, and there is only 2 live streams a week. And dear friends, when it comes to live streams, in case you want to make sure that I have said this many times before, but for newcomers, I will say that if you want to make sure that your question have not been missed by me, or if you want to make sure that your question or your comment is highlighted during the stream, you can send your question through a PayPal or Boosty platform, and that way you will support this project, and also you will make sure that topic of your interest will be discussed during the stream. And I'm gonna promote, by the way, this approach in my updates, news updates, so that during the whole week, if anybody wants to discuss certain topics during the live streams, they can send the questions. And of course, I will start this communication community chat with those questions, and I will go through chat as I always do after that. And already I see questions from Nikos, and let's go through these questions. By the way, in his latest mess of an interview, Tucker Carlson told many idiotic stuff to Alex Jones. I have not watched did that interview, dear friend. I don't know what he says. This is your opinion. One of them is partially true. Russia has a problem protecting their capital and the country. Russia has experienced many terror attacks and constant drone strikes. My question is, can Russia and their people continue living in a constant terror without reacting? How can you fix that? Well, I have to disagree, dear friend. I mean, you are suggesting that Russia has a problem protecting capital and the country. I don't think so. I don't think so. Drone strikes are happening, yes, and Russian air defense systems are dealing with the vast majority of these drones. Unfortunately, terrorist attacks do happen, but Russian security services, FSB, by the way, on daily basis, literally on daily basis, are neutralizing terrorists, and there are constant reports about that. So I have to disagree with you that capital is not safe or the country is not safe. I don't feel that way, and just because Kyiv regime and its NATO backers are capable of launching these dozens and hundreds of drones that are sometimes managing to hit some targets here and there, it does not mean that Russia is struggling to protect itself. One should always keep in mind how huge Russia is. Can you imagine that US would protect its airspace completely, 100%? It's not possible, isn't it? Even Israel, by the way, tiny Israel, with their state-of-art air defense systems that are maybe not as good as Russian latest air defense systems, but also very capable, right? Even Israeli air defense systems are struggling to intercept 100% of aerial targets in that tiny area. And you expect Russian air defense systems to intercept 100% of the targets in this 2,000 kilometer wider front line? Or, I mean, it's just it's technically not possible, right? So therefore, I have to disagree with you on this assumption that Russia is somehow unprotected. And when it comes to this question that how Russian people gonna continue to live in a constant terror without reacting, I mean, yet again, what terror? Borderline areas that are close to zone of active hostilities are evacuated, and unfortunately people there have had to face real terror, especially in the Kursk region, for example, during this invasion of the Kyiv regime's forces and the NATO mercenaries in last August. And many people were evacuated on time, but unfortunately not all people, and there are people that were left, people that were not left, but that did not manage to evacuate. They suffered big time, right? They go through hell under occupation of these terrorists from Kyiv regime and their NATO mercenaries. And well, what can I say? I have not spoken with them, but I'm quite sure they will be all for special military operation to continue until the end, and the Kyiv regime to be denazified and demilitarized. I'm 100% convinced that will be their first reaction, right? And if you are talking about rest of the Russia, by the way, well, Moscow was targeted quite a number of times, but do you see me as someone that being terrorized by threat of drones or something? I don't think so, isn't it? So people continue to live, by the way, people continue to live their daily lives, and what reaction you are expecting to see? I mean, vast majority of us are absolutely in support of special military operation. We know we are on the right side of history, and we know we are winning, and we will win, by the way, right? And if necessary, as I said many times before, if necessary, mobilization can be declared, and let them start from me, by the way, So that's the attitude we have here. So, if anyone expects to, that we're gonna get terrorized or something, no, man. We might be angry, due to actions of the Kyiv regime and the Western ruling class, but no one gonna threaten us or terrorize us, man. It's just not possible, really, And also Nikos is asking, second question is here, Konstantin Rashkov, your weatherman. I'm not familiar with this person, by the way. Weatherman, you mean he's a weatherman on TV or what? Has a YouTube channel. He is a pro-Russian, but brutally fair about it. He has pointed out that wages aren't catching up to their sanctions. How do you see it? I mean, is these two topics are connected with each other? Really? Real wages are rising here in Russia. And one should keep in mind that wages here was never like in US, for example, right? Unfortunately, our economy not yet on the same level, right? And the wages here in Moscow, by the way, average wage is about 150,000 rubles, which is approximately, 1.5, 1.7, 1.8 $100, right? $1,500 to $1,800, by the way. I mean, exchange rate is moving up and down constantly, right? And this is average wage here in Moscow. In different regions, average wages is different, right? Moscow is, of course, most expensive, I guess, city in Russia, or one of the most expensive ones. Maybe Sochi is more expensive because it's a resort place, but yes, that's the average wage in Moscow, and wages are rising. As far as I know, wages are rising, and people that was receiving some 70,000 rubles 2-3 years ago now are receiving about 120,000, and wages are rising also because there is a lack of workforce. Economy is overheating, everything is working 24/7, and the economical bloc is actually trying, and the unemployment rate is on historical low, by the way, and the economical bloc, surprisingly for many, especially for the Western ruling class, is working actively, by the way, to cool down economy. I don't think Western ruling class was expecting something like that after there are 20,000 plus sanctions, right? But economy is overheating, and their economical bloc is trying to cool economy down, and they're managing to do it quite successfully. And hopefully in next year, maybe toward the end of this year or next year, interest rates will drop at least a little bit. That will be good. But anyways, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, wages are increasing, and they're understandably so because of the lack of workforce, right? And after all, maybe people in the West don't really know about it, but in Russia, on every single year, millions of people are coming in for work. Isn't it? It says something, isn't it? Millions of people coming in to Russia to work and make some money, right? It's not just the European states that people are moving to make some money, or the US or the Canada or whatever. Right? Millions of people coming here in Russia too to make some money. So it says something, isn't it? But wages, average wages, by the way, of course, in US, by the way, average wages are higher, I guess, than here in Russia. But after all, US economy is like 10 times bigger than Russian economy, right? So you cannot really compare these two. I don't know. But wage is never enough. one should also keep in mind that, wages are never enough. Do you know anybody who is happy with the wages and don't want more income? Such people don't exist, I guess. Among us, among ordinary people, by the way, when we are working on our ordinary jobs, right? I'm not talking about some billionaires that don't really count money, but when it comes to us, ordinary people, did we ever had enough income, really? That we can allow ourselves to go into a restaurant and did not look at the receipt? I have never been in that position, by the way, and I'm working entire my life. I mean, since I start working earlier than 17, but from 17 years I was working in media. I started in Georgia, isn't it? So, but unfortunately, I was never in a position. I don't know about you, dear friends. I hope all of you are millionaires and are in much better position, but I have never been in a position when I'll go into a restaurant and never check a receipt. Anyways, let's continue. And once again, dear friends, thank you all for participating. And I remind you that if you want to highlight certain question or the topic, please put some capital Q up front and or the entire sentence in a capital letter so that I would not miss it. Michael Kennedy, hello Michael. Michael Kennedy is commenting civilians should stay away from things that are potentially a target. I agree with you. I'm not sure those civilians even knew that there was some military gathering in a building right next to on that street that they were walking around there. It is a tragedy, by the way, 100%. But unfortunately, collateral damage during high intensity conflict does occur, and people should always keep in mind that there is a high intensity conflict, right? And you are correct, absolutely. If I was a Sumy resident, I would advise my family members, everybody, to move away from areas that potentially can be used by militaries, right? Especially because Sumy is basically on the line of contact. I mean, just take a look at the map, dear friends. It's like 15 to 20 kilometers from a line of contact, Sumy. This is Sumy, by the way, right? This is Sumy, and this is line of contact. So it's, I don't know, 15, 20 kilometers away. It's artillery, on distance of artillery shelling. If Russia wanted to level Sumy, all it takes artillery to be brought in, and that will do it. But we all understand, we all know that Russia is not targeting civilians intentionally, never did, right? But unfortunately, during the high intensity conflict, collateral damage does appear. It's just, war is a tragedy. I mean, war is always tragedy. So, Ever Ready is commenting. Kaya Kallas has said that EU is working on a 17th package of sanctions against Russia. Yes, dear friends, I have seen that information. I did not use it in this update in this live stream, but I have seen that news. I mean, what they gonna sanction this time? People are really laughing. I guess people are beginning to laugh in Europe also about all these sanctions. I don't know. It's a crazy, man. It's they are harming Europe big time. Dark Nera is commenting, didn't Trump give billions to Ukraine in his first term? I don't know about billions, but he did transfer weapons to Kiev regime. He's bragging about, isn't it, that he was sending javelins and stuff. So, of course, he is not, as I said in the beginning, he cannot really say that he's completely innocent when it comes to this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. He and his administration participated in this during his first term. After all, this assault on Russia has begun in 2014, right? If we are talking about Ukraine, when coup d'etat was organized by US, and at the time it was Biden's administration, but then Trump came in, right? And basically he did not really try much to de-escalate, right? Maybe he or forces that are behind him were not in a strong position at the time, and it is true somewhat. We all remember Russia Gate and all that nonsense that that was happening in US. So first term of Trump was, he was quite weak, really, and his administration, they were constantly under attack and they were constantly defending themselves. There was internal political turmoil, and this force was not really ever in a position to pursue their actual political or ideological or economical goals. But now Trump should not care, really. I mean, he's not going to run for president again. There are some talks that he might actually run, or some other mechanism can be deployed, like J.D. Vance will run, then he will, and Trump will be his running mate, and J.D. Vance will resign and Trump will become president again. Things like that, theoretically speaking, yes, might happen, but I don't think Trump gonna run for presidency. So therefore, they should be focused on policies, really, and did not really spend much time on all these attacks from globalists, neolibs, and all that crowd. They should be, laser focused on whatever America First plans they have, and if they really be focused on national interests of the people of America, I believe it will be much easier for Washington and Moscow to find their common ground, because, as I said many times before, I cannot find even one single reason why should our two countries be hostile towards each other. I mean, you tell me, dear friends, if you know any reason why should we be hostile. I don't know. But yeah, I get your comment. Of course, during his first term, Trump, his administration were quite weak for a number of reasons, and they basically did not put up fight against the globalists that were all about fight against Russia and their escalation. And globalists, main base of globalists is Europe, by the way, isn't it? And one should understand that if America has good enough chances to be successful on its own, Europe is a different stuff. European so-called elites have no chances. European so-called elites have no chances to succeed, to maintain their relevance on geopolitical scale on their own, right? They need Russia for that. That's why they are attacking Russia, by the way, those globalist forces. That's why they provoked this war. They were dreaming about regime change here and to basically take over the Russia, and that will give them enough resources, enough energy to continue grow and to maintain their relevance, but they lost, right? And therefore they are going desperate and extremely dangerous. But US is a different story. US don't have to go down together with Europe. They have a choice to go other way, and they should take that choice. And I get feeling that these forces that are behind Trump is a front man, isn't it? Trump is a showman. He attracts crowd, and we all understand why he is put up front, right? But there are some serious forces behind him, and yet again, I got feeling that these forces understand that Europe is down, basically, and if they want to maintain relevance, they hope to be focused on America, on US, because US definitely has a potential to maintain relevance on geopolitical scale. Maybe my understanding of the big picture is mistaken. I don't know, but you know. Nidish Kumar is here. Hello, Nidish. Levan, does Russia talking about nuclear deal between Iran and USA from backdoor diplomacy? I think so. I think so because today I see some reports that foreign minister of Iran or delegation of Iran is planning to come to Moscow, and one of the topics in upcoming days, and one of the topics of discussion will be recent negotiations between US and Iran's representatives in Oman on the topic of nuclear deal. So I think Moscow definitely did play some part, positive part, to de-escalate between Iran and the US. And one should keep in mind that Witkoff, before he went to Oman, he came to Moscow, right? And during his talks with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, and other officials here in Russia, I'm quite sure the topic of Iran was also discussed. Not just Ukrainian crisis or bilateral relationships, but also topic of Iran. And after Moscow, he went to Oman. And according to reports, both sides are positive about these talks, and both sides are willing to continue. So that is good, by the way. So yes, I think Russia is involved indirectly in these talks and plays a positive role to de-escalate between Tehran and Washington. Israeli leadership not gonna be happy about it, but well, you know, we don't need no wars, by the way. I mean, humanity is sick and tired of this constant conflict, right? We need peace, and if Russia can do anything to de-escalate in the Middle East, of course, Russia will do it, 100%. Let's go through some other comments. Dear friends, once again, sorry if I miss your question or their commentary. Mona Lisa is commenting, this was an award for the Nazis for a Kursk. Why did they came there with their children and their wives? Did they think Russia would be humane to them after they killed children in Kursk? Well, I can understand your point. It was I don't know what they were thinking, really. I mean, it's difficult to understand. Maybe Zelensky and his criminal associates were hoping that Russia would strike, you know, so that they will use then casualties among civilians to start new wave of Russophobia, anti-Russian hysteria, and if this is the case, they unfortunately succeed. But whenever there is a gathering of command staff or the military personnel of Kiev regime, of course, Russian armed forces, when they have intelligence about it, of course, they should take action. And unfortunately, collateral damage is not always possible to avoid. But, you know, it's sad. It's sad that civilians were killed and wounded during that strike. But we all understand that target of the Russian strike was this military gathering of the Kiev regime and its Western instructors, right? Let me. I cannot check Boosty because it will not open. So Jerry Kogan donated through Boosty, and thank you very much, Jerry, for your donation. Let me read the comment. So Putin built up Russia because its system was broken when he came to power. Trump needs to dismantle a dysfunctional system before he can even begin to start from scratch. I agree with you, Jerry, 100%. I agree with you 100%. And I think I was saying exactly that in even today. I said something similar, and in previous updates, that system which is corrupt, immensely corrupt, and which is oriented on these multinational corporations. This system has to be, reformed. Either reformed or new system has to be built, because in a situation when country is spending, US is a rich country, of course, with immense potential, but when country, even with such a big economy as US is, spends 1.2, 1.3 or 1.5 trillion dollars year-on-year basis just on Pentagon and this so-called security services, which means eventually to enrich military-industrial complex and all their companies that are basically making money of it. I mean, how this country would succeed in the long run, right? After all, it was US president, isn't it? It was Eisenhower, or, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, it was Eisenhower who was warning exactly about military-industrial complex. He was warning Americans, don't let this monster to overtake the country. But people did not listen, and unfortunately, I mean, situations was only worsening since then. And now if Trump and his team really want to do something about it, they have to build new system. Either reform this one if it's even possible, or to build new one. That's for sure. Nitish Kumar is also asking, Levan, there are talks that USA talking with the Taliban for Bagram Air Base. Do you see it's going to happen? I also see this news, dear friends. I find it difficult to believe, because I don't know. Maybe, but maybe because nowadays Taliban has some quite difficult relationships with the Pakistan, right? There are quite often borderline skirmishes between the sides, and due to deterioration of the relationships between these two neighboring countries, I can assume that relationship between Taliban and China is also not getting any better, because Chinese influence was through Pakistan, right? As far as I can see. And therefore, technically speaking, it is possible that Taliban, that has quite a good working relationship with Russia, Taliban may actually communicate with US about certain topics. Russia may mediate in this, actually. But I don't know. Why would the US go back in that area? I mean, one may argue because of the China, right? And China is also a neighbor of there is tiny strip, isn't it? Border between China and Afghanistan. But I don't know. I don't know what to think about this topic. I have seen news about it, and I was surprised. I mean, why would US go back to Afghanistan? In Bagram or anywhere else? But and the only thing I can come up with is China, to counter China one way or another, maybe to influence Pakistan a little better, because if US is present in Afghanistan, that may embolden Taliban, of course, and US might use this as a leverage over Pakistan and somehow derail Pakistani-Chinese relationships. I mean, this is a complex game, isn't it? And who knows what is happening? But I have seen this news, and I did not report about it because I was struggling to understand what the hell is going on. So I don't know. Technically speaking, I can see such a cooperation, really, just because of this confrontation between US and China, and also quite difficult relationships between US and Pakistan. One may argue that US actually controls Pakistani secret services and ICI, isn't it, or whatever the name is, or the Pakistani militaries, but also, in other hand, a former cricket player, Imran Khan, former Prime Minister of Pakistan, is also immensely popular, and the political line that he is associated with. And that line is more about cooperation with China, right? So therefore, US might consider its presence, increase of its presence in Afghanistan. Not increase, I mean, currently US is not there, right? US might consider increase of its presence in Central Asian republics, former Soviet republics, that are especially ones that are bordering China, and also in Afghanistan, due to this confrontation between US and China, and also these difficult relationships between US and Pakistan. But I mean, these two topics are so complex that once you start thinking about all these chains, you may get lost, Each of the topics that we are discussing during these live streams probably, if we focused on it and go into details as much as we can, probably it will take hours, Nidish Kumar is commenting also, I don't care about Palestine anymore. They backstabbed us. What happened though? You mean India? I missed something probably. I don't... Did Hamas cooperated with some terrorist organizations from Pakistan that were attacking India? I guess something had happened. Otherwise, you wouldn't say that. So, but I'm not aware of their reasoning. Maria Palmer is commenting, Israeli government has funded Hamas in the recent past. They don't want peace. And I can see this argument. Israel was, according to some reports that I see, by the way, I'm in no way expert in the Middle East, isn't it? But according to expert opinions, Israel played key role on side of Hamas during the fight between Hamas and the Fatah. And only thanks to Israeli support, Hamas managed to defeat Fatah in the Gaza Strip. I don't know if this is the true or not, but there is such an opinion, isn't it? And therefore, who knows what other links are there between Israeli secret services, Hamas, and other organizations in that part of the region. But Hamas clearly defeated their Fatah, isn't it, in Gaza? And also, by the way, it is reported that still somehow Hamas is the most popular, according to, yet again, I never been there, so I don't know for sure, but reports are that Hamas is still most popular in not just in Gaza Strip, but also even in the West Bank, which is a bit surprising for me. Why Hamas is popular in the West Bank, but maybe because of the cooperation of the West Bank leadership, Palestinian administration, basically, and Israel. I don't know. But ideally, I mean, in ideal world, Of course, Palestinians and Israelis have to cooperate and live in peace. I mean, why this should be issue? In ideal world, but we all understand that this is not going to happen anytime soon, tragically. Michael Kennedy is commenting. I watched Douglas Murray on Joe Rogan this morning. Painful. I could not watch it. I saw many videos, by the way. I saw short videos of reaction on that conversation between Murray and Dave. I forget their name, but and Dave is a libertarian, by the way, and very often, whenever I watch his videos, whenever he's a guest or videos from his own podcast, quite often I find myself understanding from where he's coming from. But when it comes to Douglas Murray, I never liked this guy. Not just because of his current stance on Israeli-Palestinian issue, but in principle, I have known about him for years, and he's just too arrogant. Who he thinks he is? I mean, for God's sake, man. He's taking himself just too seriously, and it's just not pleasant to watch someone who seems like cannot laugh at himself and just I don't know, man. I don't like that guy. So I can understand why that episode would be unpleasant, But that other guy that he was debating with, Dave, damn, how I forgot. I mean, that guy is a maybe future star of U.S. politics. I don't know, but he clearly has some guts to say quite unpopular stuff quite often, and seems like he's a good human being. Jerry Cogan is commenting, yes, sir, it was Eisenhower, 1961, firewall address, sir, to the American people. Thank you, Jerry, for your comment and for your donation. Through Boosty. Nitish Kumar is saying, commenting, Levan, the USA will not help Afghanistan against Pakistan. They will target Iran. Oh, it's Iran. Yes, I mean, US can use its potential presence in Afghanistan against Pakistan as a leverage and against Iran too. Of course, I forget that there is a border between Afghanistan and Iran also. That border is relatively quiet. There are some skirmishes between, if I remember correctly, between this terrorist organization that is calling for independence of Balochistan, and they are conducting some horrendous crimes. Recently, they hijacked train, isn't it? In Pakistan, that was. So time to time, there are some skirmishes on the Afghanistan-Iran border too, but not as much as on the border with Pakistan. So therefore, I completely forget about Iran. But you have a great point, of course. Presence of U.S. militaries in Afghanistan will give them additional leverage over their Iran, especially if they will be based on Bagram airfield, if they will have opportunity to conduct even drone strikes from there, for example, or drone flights. But yet again, I'm not sure this will work out. US and Taliban will manage to find a deal, but anything is possible nowadays, isn't it? I mean, we are living in such a strange times that anything is possible. Dear friends, once again, thank you all for comments. I'm quite sure I missed some questions. Francis Sanchez is commenting. Why Stalin and Truman handed Palestine to the Jews back in 48? They committed the crime of theft. Hamas came on their scene lately. Well, that's the history, by the way. You know, Stalin supported creation of Israel. This is historically accurate. But I don't think Stalin was thinking that by creating Israel, this sort of unending war would begin between the people. I don't think Stalin was thinking that this will turn out this bad. But one should keep in mind that after Second World War, by the way, and after atrocities that Jewish people suffered in Europe, I mean, how would Stalin say no, for example, if you were on place of Russia? And by the way, this was not Stalin's idea. This idea of creating Israel was coming from early Zionists, isn't it? From UK mainly. But one should keep in mind that I think initially people that supported creation of Israel, they were just sympathizing with the Jewish people because of all that horror that these people undergo during their Second World War. Millions of Jews, by the way, were killed just because of their religion, right? Which is, crime beyond anything, right? So therefore, world was sympathizing with the Jews, and even now, dear friends, even now, I don't want world to see Israel as a representative of Jews, right? They might call themselves, Jewish state, but one should keep in mind that Jews are living all around the world, and not all of them are Israelis, right? And there are many of them, our Jews, Russian Jews, by the way, they don't support these actions of the Netanyahu. They have nothing to do with it, right? They live here in Russia, they work here, and that's it. And same goes for Jews in Europe or in America or elsewhere. So we should never, never, how should I say, man? Politics of the Israeli regime should be distinguished as a politics of that particular regime, right? We should not associate that with all the Jews, because that's wrong, by the way. This collective punishment idea was behind what Nazi Germans did against Jews, right? And all the other Nazi elements that were collaborating with them. So therefore, Netanyahu's actions are horrendous. They are committing crimes against humanity, of course, but actions of the Netanyahu's government should never be associated with all the Jewish people, because this is just not correct. And the most prominent voices against Netanyahu's regime, by the way, are Jews themselves, right? And we know quite a number of them. I just mentioned David, that was debating this guy, this British guy, on Joe Rogan show. He is a Jew, by the way, and he is a harsh critic of Netanyahu's regime, right? These brilliant journalists from Gray Zone, Aaron Mate and Blumenthal, they are Jews, by the way, and they are fierce critics of the criminal actions of the Netanyahu and his regime. And there are many more examples, by the way. There are historians that are voicing their, raising their voices against Netanyahu. So we should always be careful, by the way. This is a sensitive stuff. We cannot talk about all the people, Netanyahu and his criminal associates should be, separate from rest. Daniel Henriquez is commenting, is Russia doing anything about the birth rate crisis? Yes, dear friend, Russian government tries. There are so many programs in place to support young families, to support children, and to encourage families to have more and more children. There are plenty of programs in place, right? But modern life, just way that we live life, modern way of living, I guess goes against big families. I don't know. If Russian government definitely does quite a lot to support young families, but birth rate is still not as good as we would like. But so every time you have a kid, the state will help you with the programs, different programs, with financially, by the way. Financially now, for example, there is Materinsky Capital. That's the name of the program, one of the programs, by the way, which means mother's capital. And every time family has a kid, mother will receive this Materinsky Capital, and now this sum is about either 700,000 rubles or something around that, right? Maybe 900,000. I guess it's a different sum. If you have one kid or two kid or three kid, this sum will increase and increase. And for example, 700,000 rubles on the current rate. And let me check current exchange rate, by the way, between ruble and dollar. Where is the exchange rate? Let me check here. It's 84 rubles for $1. That's the current rate of exchange for this moment. So 700,000 rubles would be about like $7,000 plus dollars, and that's country just giving you, and you can use this sum to improve standard of living. Maybe you can use this sum to purchase something for your kids, and this is just one program, and there are plenty of it. But unfortunately this is not enough, I guess, because birth rate is still quite low. I don't know, maybe government should give $50,000 to every family when kid is born. Maybe that will encourage families to risk it, because it's a huge responsibility, isn't it? And life is quite stressed. Everybody's it's a serious decision. So therefore, And modern way of life also plays some role, I guess. Karen Tordov is commenting, I just got back from Russia, and I can assure you that I felt safer there than in UK. Hello, Karen, and I'm happy that you enjoy your stay here in Russia, and I can confirm it's really it's a wonderful country, by the way. It's a great country. You know, not everything is ideal, obviously. There is no ideal countries in this world, isn't it? But it's a safe. You can walk around Moscow at any time, and you would not be threatened. You will feel safe. Communication, transport is working okay, and infrastructure is quite. In Moscow, everything is great, by the way. You know. And work continues in St. Petersburg. Of course, big cities are developing faster, but in rural areas, by the way, life quality of life is increasing. Not last summer, but summer before, I was in North Ossetia, Alania, isn't it, for summertime, and I was making updates from there. And the veterans of our community can remember videos that I was making in North Ossetia, Alania. And it's a similar story. You can walk around the city at any time you want, and you will feel safe, and you will enjoy your stay. So I'm happy that you enjoy your time here in Russia. It's a great commentary and great way to end this update, dear friends. I guess it's more than 1.5 hours now. Thank you all for participating, and hopefully you enjoy our conversation. So once again, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for your comments, questions, for your time. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye for now.